นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนัมมัสสามิ So, good morning, everybody. I thought today I'd talk a bit about the fourth Brahmavihara, Upekkha. Equanimity, evenness of mind, sometimes translated as balance, which in the list of the four Brahmaviharas comes at the end, indicating it's possibly the hardest one to develop, the most mature quality of mind when referring to the practice of the Brahmaviharas. Sometimes they say unshakability of mind. And it's a quality that is both something we have to develop and cultivate, but it's also the fruit of the practice as well. And the person who has perfect equanimity, Upekkha, is obviously the arahant, the fully enlightened being, has perfected that barami. Sometimes it's called a barami, sometimes it's referred to as a factor of enlightenment, and so on. But we have to start somewhere and rise to the challenge. And when you talk about these qualities, the Brahmaviharas, the divine abidings, everybody likes to hear about metta and karuna. Mudita is often kind of left off a little bit, but still we like to eventually get to hear about it. But upekkha is often one we shy away from. Possibly because we know our upekkha is still pretty limited when we begin the practice, because we're so easily shaken in our mind by events, and upekkha can be quickly disappear from our experience when we're provoked by other people, stirred up, or when our loved ones are suffering. It's hard to keep an even mind, or just the wider events of the world that influence us in so many ways. So at the moment, the coronavirus pandemic is affecting us on so many levels. The level of our work environment, maybe we even lost a job. It affects our families, if we have children, the education of our children, buying things, traveling, everything is affected. So it's like we're at the moment being bombarded with different experiences that are new and often slightly disturbing to us and force us to adapt and change our lifestyle, the way we think about things. So our upekkha is certainly being very challenged at the moment by the external situations. But this evenness of mind is always going to be something that is challenged by events, even if the world is apparently going along sweetly and just how we want, because we've got attachments. And when we talk about the Brahmaviharas, these are qualities we develop particularly for learning to live with ourselves peacefully, and then live at peace, coexist with other people peacefully in our relations. And so upekkha is the hardest one to develop, that evenness of mind where one has a sense of being grounded in the Dhamma, grounded in truth, grounded in mindfulness, and grounded in wisdom. And these qualities not to be easily shaken or moved away or lost from our experience, our mental experience from moment to moment through our day. And as all the things come in, the experiences we have, some are pleasant, exciting, getting what we want, getting what we like. Some experiences are definitely unpleasant, not getting what we want or getting what we don't like. And these qualities that support Upekkha and Upekkha Brahmavihara itself easily get shaken and lost in the mix of events. And when you lose your Upekkha, you lose peace, calm. Your mind becomes perturbed, stirred up. So we need to develop Upekkha as a quality that grounds the mind. And like so many other qualities, it's nourished by the practice of mindfulness, awareness, both in meditation, in the practice of virtuous conduct, developing mindfulness of speech and actions, and then reflecting particularly on karma. When we chant about the Brahmaviharas or read a sutta about the Brahmaviharas, Upekkha is usually described as being that awareness of karma. All beings are the owners of their karma. I'm the owner of my karma, you're the owner of your karma, everybody is the owner of their karma. They're born from their karma, related to their karma, abide supported by their karma. They have karma as their refuge, and whatever karma we have done, for good or for ill, we have to receive the fruits, the results of that. So the practice of Upekkha begins as an intellectual understanding, remembering these teachings and then thinking about them, processing them in your mind, reflecting on your own life, seeing how you've made karma since you've been born, good and bad, how it comes up, gives its fruit, sometimes in very minor ways, from moment to moment, sometimes in very powerful ways that lead to all kinds of dramatic changes in our life, strong emotional reactions to things and so on. And then looking at other people's lives around us, we're seeing, they're also experiencing karma, making karma, receiving the fruits of the karma. The idea is to develop this, both the wisdom faculty, the intellectual understanding, excuse me, and the emotional balance that make up this quality of equanimity, upekkha. Many years ago, I was invited to Singapore, like 25 years ago, to give some Dhamma teaching. And part of that trip, I was invited by the Thai embassy to visit Thai workers in one of the big shipyards in Singapore. And I gave some teaching and received some offerings because they didn't have a chance to express their Buddhist faith very often. They didn't meet monks very often. And being Thai, all the workers who were there, and there were many of them, were very happy to see a monk. And then, because they said it was so rare that a monk would go and visit them, they wanted a blessing after I'd finished the talk. And given them I chanted a blessing, then they said, now we want a real blessing. What they wanted was holy water, to give them some encouragement, protect them. They said there were quite often accidents in the workplace. So you might call it a bit of Buddhist work safe. They invited me to walk around the shipyard sprinkling holy water. And if any of you look out of your windows or you're aware of where the shipyards are in Singapore, you'll know they're very big, large places, lots of cranes and machines. So I needed a lot of upekkha, equanimity, to walk around the shipyard sprinkling holy water, which took ages. And just as I finished, I thought I was going to leave, they said, there's one last thing, can you bless our boat? And I said, where's the boat? And I was standing right next to it. It was one of those ocean liners, the container cargo ships, maybe 100 meters long or even longer, I don't know, it's huge. It's what they were making. So I had to walk the length of it, sprinkling holy water. Even though I needed equanimity for that, just to keep going and do that job. That isn't the purpose of this story. It's actually when I was talking to them about these ships and how they're made, I understood that ships on the ocean always need what they call ballast, and they need weight at the bottom of the ship, and it's often just lots of sand or gravel or something very heavy to keep the ship afloat, which sounds strange because you'd assume if you fill a ship up with sand then it will sink, but the ballast is measured obviously and calculated, so they just have enough weight to keep the ship upright and steady, because when a ship goes out on the ocean, it can easily get affected by the waves and the winds that are constantly blowing, and the waves that cross the oceans are never going to stop. They're always coming, and the waves are always going to be coming, and some are small but some are big, and sometimes it's a succession of very large waves, and there's always a potential for a ship to roll and sink. Very rarely does that happen in the world because they get their measurements right and they build the things correctly, but it can happen, and they need ballast. They need this weight to help keep the ship steady on the high seas. And the practice of Upekkha is a bit like that. You need this grounded quality, which is both a very powerful and well-developed emotional state, a sense of calm in the face of whatever life brings you, but also the intellectual and wisdom, understanding that we're all the products of our karma, so are other people, and we have to accept that we're receiving the fruits of our karma all the time, and so are other people. And it's not always predictable what's going to come, just like the ocean. One day it's calm, the next day there's a storm. Our life is like that. Now we're going through the pandemic storm and all that brings to us. But whether you're in a pandemic or not, just living at home, you might live with a partner or a parent or a child or a friend, whoever, or you may be living alone. Day by day, there'll be different experiences coming up in your life which shake your mind. So the Buddha used the metaphor of the leaf. Our minds are like leaves on a tree. And again, the winds of the world are constantly blowing. They do die down for a while, but then they pick up again, and you can never control them. You can never be sure what wind is coming next. And so leaves on a tree are always getting blown by a wind from the left, from the right, and moving with the wind. And the Buddha said the 8 worldly winds are these 4 pairs of experience, like gain and loss, praise and blame, status, fame, power, and the loss of status and fame and power, and then just pleasure and pain, particularly associated with our bodies, physical bodies. So these 4 pairs of worldly winds are constantly blowing onto us. And this is where we particularly need the equanimity that comes with the practice of mindfulness and the understanding that karma is at work. Often it's very silent, unobserved. Sometimes it's clear. Sometimes you can see, this is the result of my old karma. Could be good, could be bad. You go to work, at the end of the month you get a paycheck. So that's gain. That's because you've worked and you've got an agreement with your company. They give you money. So it's almost predictable, but you never know. Things could change. But getting a paycheck is like a gain. So you need equanimity when that paycheck comes in. Why? Because then you've got to decide what to do with your money. So some days maybe you're in a mood, you're very excited or intoxicated with your paycheck, and you want to go out and splash it all out and buy something, and suddenly all your money is gone. So you go from gain to loss. You may have bought something that you can say, that's where my money went. or it may just fritter away if you're somebody who gambles or just buys a lot of consumable products that then get disposed of, or whatever. Your money comes in and it goes out. That's a worldly wind, isn't it, that we're constantly experiencing. And we need our equanimity, we need our understanding. Okay, work, gain money, spend money, and got to work again. That's life, isn't it? Got to pay the bills, got to live. So just that simple fact of life is testing our equanimity all the time and showing us where karma is at work. I remember one time my sister, when she first got her job, as far as I remember, she got her job, she was an engineer, she got paid money, she came, and it was cash in hand. She came home and was so happy she threw it all up in the air in the bedroom, just like you might do when you're excited. So there's the excitement of getting your first paycheck, and all the money landed on the floor, so it looked very kind of dramatic. And then, if I remember right, she went out with a friend to celebrate, go out somewhere in the evening, and left the money on the floor. And everyone else in the house had gone out, and one of the windows was left open. And that night, a thief came into the house while everyone was out. And then this thief had gone around the house opening drawers and cupboards looking for anything valuable. And he'd got into the bedroom, which was dark, and he obviously was scared, didn't want to turn the light on, so he wasn't discovered. And so he hadn't seen all this cash on the floor. And so he looked in all the drawers and didn't find very much at all, and then went out and was looking somewhere else. He was about to steal the television, and then my sister arrived home, so he ran off. So the thief ran off without really getting anything of value, and all her money had been left on the floor. So I was already practicing Buddhism by then, so when I got home, she said, "Oh, we got robbed." I said, "Oh, our bad karma." But then she said, "But they didn't take anything." "Oh, our good karma." Life is like that, isn't it? It's a mixture of experiences coming back to us. The fact you get robbed, you might say, is old karma from last life coming back. But then the fact that you get robbed or attempted robbery and then nothing is stolen, well, that's your good karma. You obviously haven't made enough bad karma to lose your possessions or your money. Just one example. This is where we need equanimity living in the world, because the fruits of our karma come back to us all the time. What we say to other people affects us, affects our state of mind, affects them. What we do with other people affects us, affects them. And we've built up a whole store of karma through this life and potentially for many lives in the past, stretching back indefinitely. So this practice of Upekkha is based on the understanding that we are the products of our karma. Things come back to us, and we need to find a way to be grounded as we go through our lives. What supports the development of Upekkha Bharami or Upekkha Brahmavihara is mindfulness, developing awareness in the present moment, then the steadiness of mind that comes from that, and the ability to reflect on what is going on, because that will help to bring the mind back to the present moment and to deal with whatever is arising. And you'll see, like they talk about the enemies of Upekkha, the opposite qualities that take our Upekkha away. And one of the opposite qualities of Upekkha is attachment, clinging. So say you have a family or a friend, somebody you're very close to, what happens to them will affect your mind very easily, and particularly when we lose our Upekkha. So if you love someone and they get hurt or something goes wrong for them in their life, you feel it too. Your mind is shaken, you worry, you get upset or anxious for them. Maybe even you're ready to protect them, do something for them, because you're of your attachment, but then at the same time, that will also maybe threaten your upekkha, because upekkha by description, by definition, it's a state where your mind is calm, equanimous, we're even-minded in that situation at that time with that object arising, whether it's just your own thought or your own feeling, or the situation, the external situation you're involved with, and perhaps a relationship to someone else. So if someone you love is suffering in some way, it's probably one of the hardest kinds of upekkha to maintain, upekkha towards your loved ones, equanimity in the face of your loved one's suffering. That's where we need to practice. So a good example of equanimous behavior I always find is when if you ever did visit the emergency ward of a hospital, where people are brought in out of the blue. Suddenly people are coming in with all kinds of life-threatening injuries and diseases and heart attacks and so on. And if you ever go into those places, you'll see generally doctors and nurses and the staff in an emergency ward of a hospital maintain upekkha very well. They're very calm. They go about their duty because they're maintaining upekkha, because it's vital for them to perform their duties, their job well. Imagine if they were all getting sad and crying over seeing people who are hurt, injured or dying coming into the emergency ward. Nothing would get done. They wouldn't be able to treat them properly. They wouldn't be able to complete their tasks if they're always getting emotionally involved and upset and crying or stressed out by what's happening. That doesn't mean to say doctors and nurses don't get stressed out, but in the moment when they're in the emergency situation, you'll see a very good example of people maintaining calm awareness, getting on with their duties in the face of quite difficult circumstances, challenging circumstances. I don't know if you saw the other day when there was that big explosion in Beirut, and how it affected the whole city. And there's one video clip on the BBC I saw where a woman was giving birth right at the moment that explosion took place, and the whole hospital was rocked and things were falling down, windows were breaking and equipment was falling over. But she managed to give birth through one of the biggest peacetime explosions anyone's ever seen. And the doctors and nurses went around their business, having to do their job in the midst of that. There's a great credit to them. And that's a very good example of equanimity in practice. When there's somebody in a desperate situation, needs help, and one keeps one's even-mindedness so that one can think straight and do what's needed to get the job done. And apparently the baby was delivered successfully, a happy ending. This is where we employ upekkha every day in our lives. It may not be as dramatic as that, but it may be just small things where you keep upekkha, consciously stay calm, reflect maybe at that very moment on karma, oh, this has happened, I have to accept this, rather than standing and shaking your fist and blaming someone. You accept, this has happened, this is the karmic result of. You don't necessarily know what has led up to that, but you accept its karma, and then you maintain your calm and evenness of mind in that situation. Or another one I always remember is a man who comes to this monastery. He lives in Melbourne, and he said he was always interested in meditation. He came here to learn meditation, but he never practiced it at home. He always felt he was too busy, and he had a job where he had to drive around Melbourne delivering things. So he was always on the road, very busy, many hours a day driving. And he said he's always getting very stressed by the conditions on the road, other people's driving, traffic jams, roadworks, all kinds of unforeseen problems would pop up in his day, making him late for his appointments. And he would get very stressed, very angry normally, he said. And he had learned meditation, but he never put it into practice. But then one day he was sitting at a red light, so he's parked, and while he was waiting for the red light, he thought, I'm feeling a bit stressed today, I'm just going to do some breath meditation and calm my mind down while I got 1 minute, 2 minutes waiting for the red light to change. So he was doing that, and then a car rammed into the back of his car, smashed into the back of his car. And at first he was getting angry, saying, oh no, now my vehicle is destroyed, it wasn't my fault, this shouldn't have happened, who was driving that car, how could they be so careless, etc., etc. He flew into a little rage in his mind while he was sitting behind the steering wheel. But then, because he had been meditating at that moment, he re-established his calm, his equanimity, his mindfulness came back, and he thought, I haven't done anything wrong, this has happened to me, I must just accept this, it's happened, I can't change that it's happened. And there's no point getting angry about something I can't control, it's happened, it was somebody else's mistake or fault, but there's nothing I can do now, I'm not going to waste my time getting angry. So he went back to just calming his mind, following the breath, still sitting where he was. And the driver of the car that had smashed into him was actually a doctor who was rushing to work. And it was a lady doctor. She got out and she was very nervous because she knew she was totally in the wrong. She had failed to brake her car. She hadn't stopped in time. And she came up to his window and she was expecting to receive a torrent of abuse. And he wound the window down and he looked at her and he was just calm, serene. And she looked at him and she said, oh, I'm so relieved that you're calm. I thought you were going to get really angry with me. And she apologized and said it was all her fault, and they exchanged details. And she was impressed. She said, how come you're so calm? This is totally my fault. You're in your rights to get upset by what I've done. And he just said, oh, I was just meditating. And the doctor said, wow, that's really impressive. I think I'm going to have to learn meditation as well. So in the midst of a disaster, the man has lost his vehicle, which is actually his livelihood. That's going to be out of action for a few days. So he probably had a few concerns about that. But in the midst of that, something totally not his fault, he managed to maintain his calm, reflect on what happened, and even act as a good representative of the Buddhist teachings, because he told the lady why he was calm, which is that he was practicing mindfulness of breathing and developing, you could say, evenness of mind or equanimity at that moment. And that's another bonus when we do practice equanimity in the face of things that happen to us or others. When other people see that, it helps them to be more even-minded, more reflective, more mindful. And that's one of the bonuses. Of course, the other threat to the practice of upekkha and equanimity is not just we cling to people and then get moved and affected by them, but also the other extreme is we become indifferent. This is often a charge that's given against Buddhists that you're just indifferent to the world, you just sit there meditating and you don't care, you're insensitive, you're neglectful. And that may well arise in the course of practicing, developing equanimity. So it's something like any danger you have to be on the lookout for. But the way the Buddha taught these four Brahma Viharas is that they all work together, they support each other like four friends. So it's not that you practice equanimity and forget metta or karuna or mudita, but you're there prepared for whatever comes up, the good and the bad, with equanimity. This is where it grounds you for the ups and downs of life. And if it's appropriate, well, you can also go to metta straight away. If you meet someone, you can show metta towards them, friendliness, or if someone is suffering, you can show care to them, empathize with them, help them in some way if that's appropriate. When people are doing well, you can go from upekkha to mudita. So these four Brahmaviharas work together. Right? Whenever you see those shrines in Thailand of the Brahma gods who kind of represent these four Brahmaviharas, there's always four faces on Brahma. And that's like these four qualities. They're all part of the whole. But you need the Upekkha to ground you because the mind is so easily shaken and moved by events. So it can move upwards when things go well, either for us or for others. Move downwards when things are going badly, when there's suffering. We need the Upekkha so that we can maintain calm, stability in the ocean of waves which are bigger and smaller coming towards us. That's why it's so vital. But it's the hardest of the Brahmaviharas to develop. One needs to keep developing mindfulness, and so as a practice of meditation, whether it's mindfulness of breathing or mindfulness of the body, Upekkha is developing all the time as you develop your mindfulness through your meditation practice. And you'll see it as the result of meditation as much as a quality that you're developing. It's also the result that comes. Your steadiness of mind, evenness of mind helps you. Once you finish your meditation, you go through your day, you've got something to return to. And if you practice meditation regularly, then you can regularly return and top up your Upekkha, especially when you lose it. Monks know this very well because, as monks, Buddhist monks, it's one of the things that we're known for, or it's expected of us to maintain equanimity in the face of difficulties, the ups and downs, the successes, the failures of life. And they often hold up Venerable Sariputta from the time of the Buddha as a great example of somebody who maintained equanimity and patience in the face of many different situations. So there's one occasion at the end of the rains retreat when all the monks were separating, going off to practice in different places after a period of retreat. And there was one monk in the large group who were all paying respects to Venerable Sariputta to say goodbye and go their separate ways. And this monk had a little bit of a complex. He felt he never got recognized as much as other monks. He wanted more attention. And the way he gauged that was that he felt nobody really knew his name, which is true. Venerable Sariputta hadn't learned his name. Nobody else knew his name. And so they'd never call him by his name, so he got upset by that. And this last meeting to pay respects and leave Venerable Sariputta, he bowed and Venerable Sariputta wished him well but didn't say his name. And then when Venerable Sariputta got up in the assembly of monks, he walked out of the group of monks and he walked quite close to this monk and brushed his robe, just the edge of his robe, this cotton cloth, brushed slightly onto this monk who was already feeling indignant that Venerable Sariputta hadn't called him by name. And that was it. He flew into a rage. And Venerable Sariputta didn't know. He just walked off. He hadn't done anything intentionally to harm the monk. He just walked off. And this monk was left in a rage, out of proportion for the incident, a bit like soccer players when they fall over and writhe around in agony. Maybe they've just been touched slightly, but they overdo it, overact it. It was a bit like that. So he made a complaint to the Buddha and to the other monks. He accused Venerable Sariputta of being totally heartless, not knowing his name, and then he wounded me when he walked past. He hit me with his robe, which is a bit humorous if you think about it, but nevertheless this happened. So Venerable Moggallana and the other monks, and Aruda and the other monks, they said, this guy's made a false accusation about Sariputta. Let's hear what Sariputta has to say in front of the Buddha, because then we'll get a really good teaching, what we call a lion's roar. And the Buddha asked Venerable Sariputta, said, this monk is accusing you of treating him badly, not calling him by his name, and hurting him when you walk past, you brush past him with such force that you hurt him. Is it true? Have you done anything that you need to apologize for? And Venerable Sariputta, who always speaks the truth, very calmly, with equanimity and patience in the face of a false accusation, just explained his state of mind. And they say this is the lion's roar, and he explained how his mind was equanimous, he was patient, his mind was always mindful with the Dhamma, and each time he talked about himself and his state of mind, because he was an enlightened being, he's just telling the truth. The whole world, they say the whole world shook. There was a small earthquake just because of the power of his words. And the whole assembly were very happy to see this. It's like Sariputta was one of the leaders of the Sangha, so all the monks were very happy to feel the earth shake and hear these words, just confirming their faith in him as an enlightened teacher. And of course, the monk who had made the false accusation trembled, realized his mistake, and immediately apologized and bowed and apologized to Venerable Sariputta. But Venerable Sariputta, doing the honourable thing, he was a monk, he said, I forgive you for this, what you've done, but if I've done anything to offend you or hurt you, I apologize for that. And this is a very beautiful scenario that you see in Buddhist monasteries when Buddhist monks suspect or feel maybe somebody has done something wrong to them or misbehaved. Then we have this ceremony of asking for mutual forgiveness. So the one asking forgiveness or apologizing apologizes, and then the one receiving the apology also apologizes, asks for forgiveness. And this helps, it's a supportive condition for the practice of upekkha, equanimity, and it also supports harmony, social cohesion, and supports our individual Dhamma practice where we're able to apologize and forgive. So in that story, Sariputta was held up as a great example of someone who has great evenness of mind. The Buddha said his mind is like the earth, whether people throw rubbish on it, or perfumed water, pleasant things, unpleasant things, whatever they throw on the earth never complains. He has great evenness of mind, equanimity. So a very good example for us to follow, to reflect on that. Not easy, but it's a quality we have to develop, and keep coming back to this place in your heart where you can maintain calm, whether things are going well or things are going badly, the big waves, the small waves, no waves. Try and keep an even keel, an even course. And one of the reasons upekkha is not indifference or negligence is because you keep your even course, meaning the ocean liner or the raft, whatever you're on, is going somewhere. It's going towards the end of suffering, nibbana. So when we practice upekkha, it's not neglectful of the world or our duties, it's not insensitivity, but it's practicing calm in the face of pleasant and unpleasant experiences that we have, because we're purifying our mind, developing mindfulness, developing insight into impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, lack of self in phenomena. We're going towards a goal which is nibbana. So we're going somewhere. It's not just dullness or indifference or negligence. It's practiced with mindfulness, with a purpose. So I think my time is up, so I'll leave you with those reflections today. Wish you well in your practice. May you be free from illness and sickness, both of body and mind, and may you have much equanimity. And if there's time, we can probably have some questions after this.